Good afternoon, and thank you all for attending our Search for State Job workshop with PIW. Professional Iranian women are pleased to present today's workshop. We're hoping that we can provide you with information about examination process with the state, the different career in the state of California, and also provide you with tools to enhance your interview skills and hopefully be able to have you as one of our California state employees soon. My name is Fariba Shahmirzadi. I'm one of the board member for the Professional Iranian Women. I personally believe that there are jobs for every individual in the state, no matter how much experience you have, how much your education level is, what level of background you have, how much English you know. There's jobs for everybody, and I can guarantee that. So I want you to have hope and be consistent. One thing is that you are the only one responsible to find a job. Nobody can help you. We can provide you the tips, but you're the one that has to be consistent and look for it. We have many friends that some of them actually are here and trying to help us with the workshop, that they were about to quit because they send application after application, and I'm sure some of you had experienced that. Just about the time they're ready to quit, that's the time you get the job at the state. And that's experience for all of us. So do not quit, just be persistent because you find the right place, right time, and the right job for you. And one thing I want you to take with you today is that look for the jobs that you're qualified and everything, but to really come to state, you need to bring your expectation at the entry level a little lower and try to apply for the jobs that may not be as high as qualification as you have, but that's the key. If you apply for a job that is, you're well qualified for, you will get the job, and then you can apply for a promotional exam, which is much, much more, variety of it in the state. And because the promotional exams are not open to people from public, you have a lot more opportunity to improve and to get those jobs and get promoted. So we talk about that too today, and how to get to the entry-level jobs, even though you may be, much higher qualified for the job. So we talk about exam series and the lower level in the exam series, and then other jobs that are available. So as I mentioned, the objective for our workshop today is understanding the exam and vacancy announcement. What is the difference between exam and vacancy announcement? Creating an online profile and application, introducing job analysis, understanding how exam interview, which we call it QAP in the state, and rating guides, and develop how to develop them, and then how to prepare for them. Understanding the differences between QAP, which is again interview for exam, versus interview for hiring interview, and introducing online exam and supplemental applications. So examination bulletin is the key to applying for exam. You need to understand the examination announcement. And there's so many components in the exam exam announcement, and there's so many good information. And with the state, they expect you to follow everything, every single thing in the state application, in the state bulletin. And if you fail to follow one, then you're automatically denied for the examination, no matter how much qualified you are. So it's important to understand the examination bulletin or examination announcement. In some areas you see examination announcement, and some you'll see examination bulletin. They're the same thing. So open exams are exams for everyone outside the state that would like to apply. You don't have to have state experience to apply for open exams. And normally on the top of the exam bulletin it says, is it open or promotional? The colors, we put the colors in here because before the online exam was established, all of the exam announcement was coming in different colors, paper, and you should just go to that certain department to get the color copy of the exam announcement. Now, most of the exams are online, and you'll be able to go directly to online and pull the exam announcement. So the colors doesn't apply as much, but if you are working for a department that they only deal with the hard copy, then you know what's the differences between the colors. So if you're looking for an open exam, you're looking for white or blue. White is open or open non-promotional, and open non-promotional is the exams that you can be state employee and still take an open non-promotional exam, and you will receive 3 points as extra score after you reach the 70% of the exam. So you'll be 3 points higher than others who passed the exam with the same score as you did. Blue exam application bulletin is also for open exams, but they're continuous exams. That means that you can continuously apply for the exam. It doesn't have any final filing date. It doesn't have any deadline. You can apply anytime. They're blue and they're continuous. So if you see anything continuous, you'll see that they are, you can apply anytime. And most of our online exams now are continuous, so it doesn't have a deadline. You can continuously go online and apply. But there is a limit. Once you apply, if you don't pass, some of them you have to wait 6 months, some of them you have to wait 12 months. It says specifically on the exam bulletin that what is the period that you need to wait. And then the green, which is the spot, which means that they're exam for specific geographic area. So you can't apply and expect to, to work in Sacramento if the exam bulletin said it's for, Orange County, or if it's for San Jose County. You have to make sure you read what locations the exam is for. Sometimes it says statewide, and if it's a statewide, then you can apply it at any location, and there are jobs available throughout the state of California. And the pink is for promotional exams. So if any exams you open says promotional and you're not state employee yet, you're not qualified to apply for it yet. So that's when, once you start with the state, then you're qualified to apply for promotional exam. If you are state employee and you change department, you can apply for the promotional exam for your new department, and within 3 years for the previous department that you were employed with. So there is a state personal rule that allows you to apply for promotional exam even if you move from one department to another, and still apply for the promotional exam for the other department that you were employed. There is multi-departmental promotional exam, and also there are some multi-open, which is recently for online exams. They have multi-departmental. So you don't stick with one department, or your opportunities are actually multiple, because you can apply for many state jobs within the same department. So if it's multi-departments, that means you can apply for many departments. So your opportunity grows with multi-departmental, open and promotional. And sometimes they publish a rider, meaning that they change the exam announcement, either the deadline or the information. So make sure if you apply for a job, if you send an application for an examination before the deadline, and sometimes after deadline, double check the online system, make sure there's no changes, because sometimes they announce the changes. So mostly they want to extend the deadline to apply for exam. So important information you need to know, again, regarding the exam bulletins are the exam title, You want to make sure you know what exam you're applying for. The cross-filing, sometimes you can send one application for 2 or 3 different positions. For example, the IT classification information system jobs, you have from very entry level, which is our assistant information technology, to associate, to staff, and then higher level. Sometimes you can apply for both the assistant and the staff, or assistant and associate. So if it's cross-filing, you know that it is for both or multiple exams that you're applying for. You need to make sure what is the exam basis, because again, we talk about open promotional, so that's exam basis. Make sure you're applying for the right exam, and then how to file, and then file date. This is really critical to read how to file. Some filing, you have to actually print your application and mail it to the address that it's indicated. Some you need to only submit online, and some applications you have to take it in person. So it's really important that you look at how to file, for example, section on the bulletin. Minimum qualification, that's how you know if you're qualified to apply for the job or not. And minimum qualification is sometimes tricky. So if you're not understanding, make sure you call that department and ask them. And sometimes they reject you on minimum qualification, but you know you have the qualification based on what you read. So you can always appeal. And we talk about how you can appeal for the minimum qualifications that they rejected you for, but you know that you are qualified. Position description is another key. We'll show you where you can find your position description, and that's another tool for preparation for interview. Exam information, that's another section in the exam bulletin. When we show you exam bulletin, we go through all these sections. The scope is where you actually want to focus when you prepare for your interview. Scope talks about knowledge, ability, and skills that indicate all the importance for the job. So if you are applying, for example, for an IT job, which is a computer informational technology job, you know that there are certain things that this particular exam needs, and you want to make sure that you read those and prepare yourself for those listed under the scope. So scope is almost like your reading points for your exam. You need to understand it and memorize it and make sure that you match your skills and abilities and experience with the scope in the exam. And then, of course, a special characteristic. Under a special characteristic, they said you need to lift 25 pounds or more, or you have to be able to work in a very noisy environment, or you have to be able to stay on phone for a long time. So those are the things you want to read to make sure this is the right fit for you and that's the job you want. So special characteristic is another good component of the exam bulletin. So application for exam, that's what we talk about. It's a really important factor, and a lot of time you are qualified to apply for the exam, but because you don't fill it completely, you get a denial letter. So state application, you need to make sure you put your last name, first name, middle initial. The Easy ID is no longer apply because they changed the system recently. State Personal Board and CalHR changed their system, so you don't need to have the ID. Application for examination need to be clearly identify your education, mainly your applicable education, but if you have education that may not, apply for the job, you still want to put your education, because no matter what, your education is still, a valuable part of your, background, and you want to make sure that it's listed on your application. The experience, and if you're not sure that you meet the minimum qualification, still apply, because a lot of time you may not know that all your experience that you had may somehow fit the the exam announcement and the requirement for the exam. List all your volunteer experience, even though you didn't get paid for the job. Those volunteer experience are sometimes very valuable, and they count the same as your paid experience. So don't shy about putting your volunteer experience. They're very valuable for the jobs that you're applying, if it's, of course, related to the job. And list all other relevant experience you have. We talk very specifically about this when it comes to the job description. There is a section about equal opportunity. You don't have to complete that. It asks about your age, your sex, your background, your disability, and all that. You don't have to respond to that. What happens is once the application is filed, they actually remove that part. If you hand it to them, they have to legally separate those and enter them in the system separately without any name or any identification, just to make sure what percentage male, female apply for a job versus Hispanic versus Filipinos. They want to know what is the demographic of state employees, but they don't really necessarily keep it with the application. Actually, legally they can't even keep it with the application, and nobody, even the exam panel, will not see that. So it's optional. You can fill it, you don't. And then we talk about the LEAP exam, which is for people with a disability, that then you may need to enter your disability information, and that's a different process, but we'll talk about that. And we talk about how state of California looking at disability much different than other states, and a lot of us may consider disabled without us knowing. And one of the examples they gave me at the state personal board is that if you wear glasses, sometimes it's considered disability, because without the glasses you won't be able to perform the job. So we'll talk about that too, and a lot of times we can get approval from Department of Rehabilitation that actually qualified you for a disabled in California, so you can apply for disabled LEAP exam. So if you see LEAP exam, that's for those type of positions. Then we talk about signing the application. Definitely you need to sign your application. If it's online, there's agreement that you have to click to say that's, yeah, I agree with that, and I know under perjury of law that I have to respond to these questions true and with they're all fact that I can provide later. And then submit your application. Keep a copy of your application. That's the key, because sometimes we send an application and they call us for interview and we don't even know what we substantiated. So you want to make sure you know what you have submitted with your application. Always keep a copy, no matter what, so you can refer to that, and also prepare for your interview. So with that, we're going to go to jobs.ca.gov. You want to always remember this website, because everything is now in jobs.ca.gov. So we have handouts out there that has the website, but also you can write it down. But this is it. Basically, the state job is two-step. One is take the exam, and second one, apply for vacancy. But without taking the exam, you can apply for a vacancy. So there's a two simple component that we need to follow. I have a short video for you to show how to actually get your applications filled and how to submit that.
Welcome to CalHR's tutorial on Taking an Exam Part 1, where we show you how to find the official exam bulletin. The official exam bulletin includes the following information: the State Department giving the exam, the type of exam to be given, how to apply to take the exam. Some bulletins refer to this as filing instructions, and the final filing date or deadline to apply. Visit our website at www.jobs.ca.gov Under the Search Exams and Job Vacancies feature, enter the title of the exam you wish to take. For this tutorial, we're going to search for Personnel Specialist. Click Search. This is the Exams and Job Vacancies search results page. When you search for a job title on our home page, the website will look for both exams and job vacancies. And that's why you will see both an exams column and a vacancies column. If you don't see a bulletin link for Personnel Specialist, that means that the exam is not given right now, and you should check back periodically for updates. Keep in mind that just because there are current vacancies, it doesn't mean the exam for that job will be available. In this case, there is a bulletin link, so click on it to move forward. Now you're at the exam search results page. As you can see, the results have been narrowed down, so you only see an exam for Personnel Specialist. You'll see the word open for exam base. An open exam means that both state employees and individuals who do not work for the state may take the exam as long as they meet the minimum requirements for the exam. If the exam base showed promotional instead of open, this would mean that only state employees may take the exam, although certain exempt and legislative employees and veterans may also qualify. Click on the Exam ID link to proceed. This is the unofficial exam bulletin for Personnel Specialist. On this page, look for the section Where to Apply. Typically, under the Where to Apply section, there will be a link that takes you to the official exam bulletin. Click on the link. This is the official exam bulletin for Personnel Specialist. Keep in mind that exam bulletins may differ in layout and wording, but the basic information will be the same. So read over the bulletin carefully and thoroughly to determine whether or not you qualify. If you do qualify, follow the following instructions to begin the application process required to take the exam. Keep in mind, generally, if the official exam bulletin is available, this means that the exam is available. However, this isn't always the case. Here's an example. Here's the official exam bulletin for Motor Vehicle Field Representative. As you can see, even though the bulletin is available at the time of this video, the exam is clearly not. In this case, you should visit the bulletin periodically for updates. And please note, most of the time, the unofficial exam bulletin will take you directly to the official exam bulletin, but this is not always the case. Consider the following example. This is the unofficial exam bulletin for clinical social worker. The exam is given by the Veterans Home of California. Under the Where to Apply section, you're taken to the California Department of Veterans Affairs website instead, where you have to look for the official exam bulletin. And here it is, the official exam bulletin for a clinical social worker. Click on it. And now you're looking at the official exam bulletin.
When you click on CalHR or jobs.ca.gov, basically you'll see this screen. Okay, and then the video is right after under job seekers and under video tutorials for job seekers. So when you click on that, you'll get to the CalHR, and these are where the videos are. The home page, besides the job seeker, you may want to put this website as well, www.calhr for California Human Resources .ca.gov. So when you click on that website, this screen comes up. This screen has a lot of good information for you. For example, the job description. So if you click on the job description and if you're interested in, for example, an accountant trainee, the exam for accountant trainee comes up, or I'm sorry, the spec will come up, and this is the series that we talked about, the entry level in the accounting field, and the higher level within the series. So you can apply for accountant trainee, you can apply for accounting officer supervisor, senior accounting officer, specialist, or senior accounting officer supervisor, depending on your experience. So you want to know which one is your, that meets your background and knowledge and experience. So you come down and you look at each of these, accounting officer, supervisor, specialist, or accountant trainee. But the main part you want to look at is the minimum qualifications. So you come under minimum qualification. As an accountant trainee, your education should be either, when it says either 1 or 2, you can meet either 1, or sometimes 3. In this case, you have 3 different patterns that you can be qualified under each one. No matter which one you'll be qualified, you can apply for one. Normally, if it's open exam, all of them are from outside experience. Sometimes the first pattern, which is this one, is specifically for state jobs. So you said you have to have 1 year of experience as an accountant assistant or accountant 1. In this case, you don't have to have a state experience. It says either equivalent to graduation from a college with a specification in accounting, or registered as a senior. If you're not graduated, as long as you're a senior in college, you can apply. But also, they must produce evidence of a successful completion once their degree is completed, when you're ready to accept a job. The second one is having a prescribed professional accounting curriculum given as a residence or correspondence to school of accountancy, include courses in elementary and advanced accounting, auditing, cost accounting, and business law. So if you happen to have a degree that is not accounting, but you have if you have all of these courses that listed, you can still apply for the job. The third one is completion of the equivalent of 19 semester hours of course. So all you need is to have 19 semester hours or 16 quarterly hours, that whichever apply for your in the school that you sign up for, which shall be professional accounting courses given by a collegiate grade resident institution, including courses in elementary and advanced accounting, auditing, course accounting, and 3 semesters hours of business law. So again, this is something that you, if you can get 19 semester hours of accounting, you can apply for under pattern 3. So you don't necessarily need to have the degree in accounting to apply for it. So this is the key to understand your qualification. If you're not sure, you make sure you can always contact the department that announced that exam and ask for it, to say, I have these classes, are they going to be qualified classes? If you're not sure, just apply and make sure you submit your transcript to it and send it through, and they can tell you yes or no. And if you're missing a class, they will let you know. Okay, so this is a job spec that you can pull for any classification. It doesn't have to necessarily be an exam. You can prepare for yourself for an exam that is coming up. If that's your interest, accounting is your interest, make sure you pull, go to the homepage, put the classification that you're interested under job description, type it right here, and it will bring you up the qualification for the exam or particular class. This is where I'd like you to focus on how to complete your application. Under my profile, there is a section that you can complete your profile, and once you complete your profile once online, that's going to be there forever. So you can always go back and change a few things or tweak or change your experience, but it's always there for you. You can print it and apply for as many vacancies once you establish eligibility on the exam list, as many as you want. And they're always there also for online exam. So that information is going to be hosted at CalHR, California Human Resources website. So if you apply for an online exam, and as long as you put your ID and your password, all that information automatically go to the exam application for that exam, so you don't have to complete the exam anymore, because they're all related to the online exam, and they can launch them through the system to the new exam. So this is really important. If you even not plan to apply shortly, establish a profile and work on your profile. And we're hoping today we can show you how you can make an effective and pretty distinguished application. So once they receive it, there is no way that they can reject you if you have the qualification. And then for interview, how to manipulate your application to make sure that your experience matches the experience that for that particular position is needed. Okay, so we'll talk about that, and we'll give you some tools to use. Some of us probably hasn't have English as our first native language, so we may have difficulty in picking right words or picking right statements for what we're going to explain our experience and education. So I'll take you to a section in a website that can help you to pull the statements that you want to use both for your application and also during your interview. Okay? So this is basically what you start when you go through my profile. It gives you an ID and password. If you've never been in the system, you need to actually create a new profile. So you go in here to say create a new profile. And I already did include Mr. John Smith there. So what you need to do is put your name, put your first, last, and of course phone number, email address, and respond to a security answer, and that's it. And you are ready to log in. Okay. So it says if you have option to apply online, we highly recommend that you apply online. Okay, and you also contribute to a paperless process, and you for sure know that it's been submitted. When we mail, we're hoping it gets there. When we take our application there, we're hoping the right person get it to the right, section. But when you submit it, you have a proof that you have submitted an application. So your profile is already set up, and that's your state application. And then you can always ask that they notify you when there is a job vacancy open. So because now you have a profile in the system, you can request for notification for jobs. So basically, you just go in and put your email, and we'll show you where that is in the system to request that you be notified every time that there is a vacancy. And then planning for your exam, and then general information. Filing date is very important. You have to make sure that you understand when the file date is, so you can, apply early and don't leave it to the last day. Because sometimes the printer doesn't work, or system Wi-Fi doesn't work at your home, and you don't want to stay till last minute to apply. So always apply early. And then if it's U.S. mail, make sure you send it through the mail. And sometimes if it's hand delivery, you want to make sure that it gets delivered right. And then there's a file in person. We talk about file in person. That means you have to personally take your application. A lot of time, the exams that have tremendous applicants, they want to limit the applicants. And so they want to make sure that we have as less applicants as they can, because sometimes you may have 2,000 people apply for a job. So they make it a file in person process, so they limit the candidate pool. So you want to be there, you want to be one of the first one in line to submit your application when it says file in person. And then, of course, when your application is accepted, then you receive a notice that your application is accepted, and what is the next step. You receive if you don't qualify, you receive a disqualification letter, and you have 7 working days. So that's the business day, not including the weekend, to request that they look at your application again. So normally there is a phone number that you can contact them and say what was the deficiency in my application, and you may miss submitting that information. So you want to make sure, contact them within 7 days, and it doesn't matter if it's promotional exam or open exam. You have that 7 work days to request the appeal. Basically, that's a process for appeal. And this is just appeal to the department. We talk about appeal to the state personnel board, which is the next level when you know that there was a discrimination or there was some kind of a there's quite a few criteria, but if granted for the appeal, the state personnel board looking at the process and see if that examination actually conducted in a fair and unbiased and with no discrimination. So that's of course has to be substantiated. You should have good facts and good information to submit, but there is an appeal process with the state personnel board, and they take it very serious. One of the examples I can tell you is one of the appeals that the state personnel board looked at was the interview process, and the panel member were writing information about the appearance of the person with the red hair, or black or Hispanic, or this type of information. When the state personnel board ask for the examination or interview documentation, they looked and see there are some references to the appearance. You can't judge people based on their appearance, their age, their national originality, their age, all that. So if it's any references on the exam material, the state personnel board can actually cancel that exam and provide you a next option or next opportunity to take the exam again. So never be shy to appeal for at least to the department within the 7 days if you're sure that you met the qualification. At some examination, and we'll talk about this in details, they need a supplemental application, or their basically education experience, or their written test. So again, on your exam announcement, if it says you need to submit supplemental application with your application, that means that you need to read a specific requirement for the supplemental application. And sometimes they might just say you need to submit a statement of qualification stating your experience and background for this that matches this job. Okay, we have some example for you that I printed, so you can take with you if you see there's there's an exam that you're applying, or if maybe for future that is an good example of how to do statement of qualification. They are very specific. They tell you exactly you should use what font of typing. You need to type it, what font it has to be, how many pages, and sometimes they have a specific questions on the supplemental app. If it says question 1, 2, 3, or if it's bullet, make sure that you respond to each bullet and each number separately. Because if you just give them a general statement, put non-qualified, because they have piles of application that goes. So a lot of those qualified people are in the non-qualified pile because they didn't follow the instruction. So I can stress more on, instructions on the bulletin is the key, to at least, pass through that hurdle first. And then, of course, there are written tests that, we talk about the written test, the supplemental law we talk about. Written tests, sometimes it's weighted 100%. That means that once you apply online, it gives you a date for a written test and say come to such and such location for a written test, and that's all they consider for putting you on the exam list or on the qualifying list. And 100% means that once you pass the exam, you're on the list. There's no interview and no other components. But then once you state your eligibility, now you can apply for all the positions that are vacant in the state. But this is what I want you to understand, the importance of this document. This calls position statement, and any jobs that you apply for, that there's a vacancy. This is after you take the exam. Remember, there's 2 steps. One, you take the exam, and then the second one is to apply for a job. So now you're on the list, exam list, and you're reachable, means you're on the first 3 ranks. And now you can apply for any positions that are vacant in the state, okay? So what you need to do, some of the announcement has position statement linked to the announcement. You can click on it and it will come up. If you don't see a statement of positions, or sometimes they call it a duty statement, you make sure you call the contact person on the vacancy statement and ask for this document. This is the key for your success in the interview. And why? Because it listed everything that a job it does need, or basically the incumbents in the job does on a daily basis. Okay, so for example, on this one it says, under the supervision of the Staff Service Manager 1, the Staff Services Analyst will perform the duties related to the varied budget programs within the Workforce Services branch, and learn a full range of budget analysis duties and responsibilities. All work performed will require the collaboration with other branches or other branch and department staff to determine varied program budget, authority, expenditure, and this is other solicited required or other action required. In addition, the incumbent means the person who is performing the job will present the WSR on premises issues and assist with the monthly field information system, EIS reporting. Okay? So it may scare you to say, I don't know any of these. They're more internal, so they're probably shooting for someone within to hire. Basically, all you need to do is to contact the department once and ask if there's anybody in the department that you can talk about EIS, which is that field, last line, field information system. I want to know if there's anybody I can talk to. You can actually interview them. You can go and talk to the people that perform the job and ask them, I'm very much interested in this type of work, but I'm not familiar with your system that you're using. That doesn't mean that you can't perform the job. So once you get the information, then you're preparing yourself for the interview. So that's why this document, the duty statement, or we call it here, statement of job. Some department call it position statement. Some call it duty statement. Is the key for you to prepare for exam. Okay, and then there's other examples that I'm going to show you in a while for how to best use this document to reflect on your application. On the home page, there is the screen that you can go down there. We talk about creating a new profiles. Okay, so you never completed a state application before, so you click on that, and then you complete a user ID. It can be anything, maximum 20 fields or character. So let's say put put John there, and then you can select a password as any password you want. So let's put fog as a password. And then you answer the security, the 4-digit security. You can select any of these that you know that you will remember. So your elementary school name, or your the city that your mother was born, or let's try that. Okay. And then your security answer, you answer where your mother was born. So let's say Sancto. And then your first name again, so you put John. Oops. And then you put Smith. And then you put an email. And then you put the number. I think I put right one more. Okay, so these are your information you want on the first screen. Oh, somebody else using this user ID. Okay, here we go. So here's your new account verification. You make sure these are the correct information for you, and then you log in. Okay, so now you're ready to do your application. So you click My Application. The information you submitted already comes up, so you just need to fill the areas that are blank. Your Social Security, and then your work number. If you don't have a work number, don't put anything. And then your mailing address. If there's an apartment number, or you can put it always in there. And then you pick the state. If you live in another state, you can definitely select your state. The county is important because sometimes the county that you select may be the county that they're testing for only. So it's important that you put your county. And if you live, most of the area in Sacramento is Sacramento County, even if you live like in Folsom. So you put that, and then your zip code. And then here's a says for spot examination. Remember we talked about the green application that's only for certain location. So if it's a spot examination, you need to indicate which spot you're taking. So sometimes there's 4 facilities within the department. They want to make sure which one you work at. So make sure you put the facility that you want to work. And then later on, it asks more question about it. And the job title. Job title is very important that you put the right job title. Sometimes it's for accountant 1 versus accountant 2 versus a specialist. Sometimes in the parentheses they have supervisor versus a specialist. So you have to put exactly what the exam announcement asks you to put, or the job duty. Sometimes the job title asks for a position number. Make sure you put the position number, because if you don't put the position number, sometimes again it goes to the pile that they do not qualify. And then you do so you put, let's say, staff services analyst, and then you just complete it. I want to take you to just one more screen and then show you why that section is so important, and then we talk about how to complete that. So Again, the county which you would like to take the examination if different from the county you reside. So remember we talked about the county on the first screen. This one says if it's different from the county that you reside, then you need now put the county that you take the exam for. So that's why it's important. So if you live in Sacramento County, but the exam is for Orange County, make sure you put Orange for Orange County. And then normally if you don't have any disability, then you don't need any reasonable accommodation. If you have a disability and you need reasonable accommodation, then this is where you place it. If your religious belief prevents you from taking examination on Saturday, you want to put yes or no. And then are you, because if you are, then they can reschedule the exam for you for another day. And if you are not working for the state of California, you just put no. But if you are, make sure you put yes, and then you put the department and subdivision. So if you put EDD, and then the subdivision is Workforce Services, then if it's related to job, that's even give an additional boost to your application. You don't have to put, if you're dismissed. If you're dismissed or terminated from an exam or from based on a disciplinary or performance before from the state, you can always request that negative information comes out from your record, so you can apply for at the state personal board and request to remove that. If you don't have that issue, then you don't have to worry about it. Just put no. And then if English is not, in addition in English, if you're fluent in any other language, you can go ahead and put it. So you can put Farsi, and then a certified type. If it's a typing, it says only for typing. So if it's like if you're applying for key data operator or some examination that it says you need to have this much of typing skills, then you put 65 or whatever that your rate is. And then these questions are necessarily not required, only if you apply for certain like peace officer exams, or because otherwise they can ask your age. You don't have to substantiate your age. So it's really for certain classification, and if the job examination or the job bulletin or the exam bulletin doesn't say that, you don't need to put your age. And same thing with your license, driver license, unless it's specifically asked that we want your driver license number, you don't have to put it. And then here, make sure if you pass the exam and you're eligible on the list, you need to put eligible on the list. Sorry, I'm on the cap. And sometimes if you want to put like first rank, you can put first rank or whatever your rank is, because once you take the exam, in the exam response, they give you what rank you are eligible. So you can put your rank there. If it's a high rank, we definitely recommend you put that. So now you go to your school. You can put your school there. If you don't have any education, you don't have to put it. And let's say to graduate from high school, you put no, I didn't graduate from high school. I don't have any GED. Or if you do, then you put yes. And then you add your college, experience. If you have college experience, or education, you add your college education here. You save it. If you don't have anything, you just skip that. And then here's your employment history. This is the key for you to, once you pass the exam, this is the page the supervisor and manager goes in to screen the application, okay? So you have to complete this to the point. As far as the from date, it asks you to do 2 months, 2 digits for the month, 2 digits for the day, and 4 digits for the year. So you have to make sure you put that in there. Okay. And then if your experience is, you're still working in that job, because you want to put your most current job first. Okay, and then the job number 2, job number 3 is the ones that you previously had. So your current job is when you started the job, and then you put till present, because you still have the job, right? You're still employed with that. If you're not employed, you put the last date that you were employed, and it has to be, again, 4 digit for the year, 2 digits for the day and the month. It is really critical, because sometimes with 1 day you may not be qualified, or if it's for the interview, they may have a criteria based on the years of experience. So 1 day can change your months or years of experience and put someone else ahead of you. And then you put the job title. Again, the job title has to be very specific. So let's say it's the staff services, staff services analyst. And then the company that you're applying for, so you have to make sure which agency it is. Remember when we talk about exam announcement and the bulletin, and make sure you make a copy of your application and make a copy of your bulletin when you send it. For the vacancy, it has to be the department that has the vacancy. You can't put all those departments that you applied that was on the exam announcement. It is specific to a department that you're applying for a position. So this one would be EDD, for example. Oops, sorry. I need to go back. Okay, so okay. If you missed anything, did you just see me? I put edit, and you go back, and then you add, what you want to edit. So if you find out that the date was wrong, or you want to add, different information, you can always edit it. And then make sure you put your supervisor name. Even if the supervisor is retired or gone, it's always better to put the supervisor name than not any. Okay? So let's say Mr. Smith, and then the phone number, and then hours work. Again, this is really important that you put how many hours you work, because again, they count 40 hours as a month. So if you're working 20 hours, then they count 2 months as 1 month of experience. And if you don't put anything, then they may disqualify you. So it's again really important to put 20, 40, how many hours you work. And then this is per week, and then this is total worked for as this job title, years and month of experience. So let's say if you work there for 4 years and 3 months, making sure you put that in there, and then your earned salary, and then is it per hour, per day, per week, or per month. So again, you have to make sure you put that, and then the address that you're employed at, and then this is the area that you want to focus. And how do you make this the most effective way that your application will come on the top of other applications and it shines? Okay. Remember we talked about duty statement earlier. You need to make sure you get the duty statement for the job. And what you perform right now, let's say you're a staff service analyst, right? Because this is your history, right? This is the job that you right now have. You want to make sure your current duties somehow matches the job that you're applying. So if the duty statement that that we show you earlier, If that matches your experience, that's fine, because whatever you do right now is going to match that job. If it doesn't, then you want to get the duty statement from the job for the job that you're applying for, and then try to see, based on the duty statement that we talked about, which ones apply to you, so you can tweak it. You can tweak it to the experience that you have. So let's say if the analytical work you do has nothing to do with the budget, and the position is asking for a budget experience, you can put you have done analytical work, because analytical work is analytical work no matter what you do. If you have the analytical mind and you have the skills for analytical work, you can perform any analytical work. So that's how supervisor and managers look at. So if the duty statement you obtain from the job for the job you're applying for, say, analytical, perform analytical skills and duties in a budget session, you don't have to necessarily put budget because you don't have experience in budget, but you did the analytical work. So you can put the field that you did analytical work for. Okay. A lot of you has done research. Research is a good example of analytical work. You can you have done school paper. School paper need a lot of research, providing alternatives, comparing alternatives, so you can use all of that to indicate that you have analytical skill, even though it's not budget related. So I think it's the key that you put what you perform here matches the job you're applying for. Okay? I'm going to take you to a link at State Personal Board. Let's see if I can open another one real quick. Okay. I'm going to take you to the state HR professionals. And normally we go to the job seeker, right? If you look for a job seeker. This one is mainly for supervisor managers, and this is how they develop their interview question. This is how they use the competencies to match your experience with the job they have, how they create their duty statement. So you go to the state job HR professionals, and then let's start with the competencies. Competencies are the newest method in state for developing questions, developing duty statement, and the performance reviews. They use competencies. And what is competency? Competencies refers to the knowledge, skills, ability, and personal characteristic as demonstrated by behavior that are needed to succeed a job. So they look to see what you have done in the past, that through the behavior that you show, through your experience, they can say you're going to be a successful candidate in the job. So not necessarily that you have to have exactly same type of experience, but as long as you show competencies. We talk about analytical skills. We talk about customer service. It doesn't matter if the customer service in a certain field. If you have customer service skills, you have customer service skills. If you have people skills with interpersonal skills, doesn't matter which job you did. You can show interpersonal skills, and that's what state is now focusing in competencies, both for examination, for interview, and also for promotional interviews. They look at your competencies. So for us who are looking to put right words and right verbs and make sure that they are correct, we will take you to the competency dictionary. This is a really, really useful tool for all of us. I still use it. This isn't for your application, to complete a good application, to be prepared for interview, what to say in the interview, and use the competencies you have to the best of your knowledge. So you click on the competencies, the dictionary, and then there's all kind of categories for all kind of jobs that you apply, and those bullets are your key to put in your application, to put in your interview preparations and your talking points for the interview, and for any other supplemental application, statement of qualifications that you need to submit. These are great statements you can use, and it's applied to most of the jobs that you may have experience for. For example, if the job is analytical, no matter what it is, again, budget analyst, IT analyst, any type of analyst job, you want to say, make a systematic comparison of 2 or more alternatives. So if in your job you have done compare alternatives, you can put that as one of the things that you have done as an analyst. If you make connections and patterns among system and data issues, so you have 2 datas and you compare them, no matter what kind of data, you compare 2 things together and you come up with a conclusion. You have done it. So you can say that you make connections and pattern among the system and data. If you work with specific system, then put that system in there. So if you work with for example, IT system, or if you work with an accounting system, name the accounting system, because a lot of you might work in the private using a different system that the state doesn't use. It's okay. You work with the system and you connect the patterns, and your competency shows to the manager and supervisor who's hiring that you have done that type of work. So again, use these as preparing for interview. These are good verbs, good statements you can use. Technology, if the job asks, you need to apply technology, then you can say you accept and understand the benefits of using technology, use technology to simplify and streamline tasks, and then you can put, what kind of experience with technology you had. Change leadership. Sometimes the question in an interview says, how do you accept changes? Okay, because a lot of companies and organizations in the States is going through changes, and they want to make sure you're the right person for the job. Okay, you have the skills. You have been an accountant for many years. So are 20 other applicants that apply for a job. So why I should hire you? Because you can show, if the question is change leadership or how do you handle change, that you can say, you develop better and faster or less expensive way to do things. That shows that you are ready and open to change, because you either created something at your current job that does things better, or faster, or recognize and manages challenges that can accompany change. You encourage others to value change. Okay, so these are keys that they're looking for. These are managers, supervisors looking for these kind of statements. If you have done it, of course. So it depends on your competency and the field you're applying. So there's all kind. There's conflict management, creating thinking. This is really key for our state employee who looking for promotional jobs. These are the things you want to refer to, because a lot of things is for at executive level or supervisor level or higher level, they may even, refer to these, because these are now the resources for managers and supervisor to develop question. Customer focus, you solve customer problems quickly and efficiently, So a lot of good information here, and so I highly encourage you to keep that as one of your tools to refer to when you make yourself ready for an exam or for interview. Okay. So it's, instead of just jobs.ca.gov that we talked earlier, it's www.calhr.ca.gov. G-O-V. Okay? And instead of going to job seekers, you go to State HR Professional. State Jobs Professional. And when you come to this page, you go down under Supervisor and Managers, and then Competencies. And under Competencies, you come down, and there's this Competencies Dictionary. Okay? So it has all kinds, as we talk about risk management, stress management, team leadership. A lot of times they ask you about teamwork and team leadership, thoroughness, vision, strategies, workforce management, written communication. You can put, what kind of papers you did at school. You follow proper grammar, punctuation. So those are all things that, if you do it in your current job. Okay. So the difference between a qualification appraisal panel QAP and interview for hiring interview. Remember we talked about online exam. A lot of our online exam, you go in, there's education and experience more than anything else, 100% education and experience. So you go in and you respond to the series of questions, how many years of experience you had, if you didn't have experience, what kind of education, how many years you did training. So series of questions that normally the online exam asks you. So you take the exam, you're qualified to go on the list, you're on the top, 3 ranks. Then they ask you for interview for positions. Sometimes you receive letters from that department, sometimes you don't. So you need to make sure that you search, like we showed earlier, how to search for vacancies. You just type in the classification that you take the exam for, and all those vacancies comes up. If it says exam, you don't need to take the exam anymore. Right next to it on that column it says vacancies. You can see how many vacancies there are in the state. Some of the classification, you have 120 vacancies in one classification. And that's why earlier I said there's job for everybody in the state, because there's not a possibility that there's so many vacancies and we cannot connect, or we cannot be in the right time, right place for that job. So, don't get discouraged, but you just need to know the difference though. So let's say if the exam asks for a QAP, which is Qualification Appraisal Panel, that means that is an interview for exam. If you already passed the exam, you receive an interview, and that's for the position, that's the hiring interview. So that's the difference. And how do we prepare ourselves? So for QAP, the interviews are conducted to place candidates on an eligible list for a classification. No opening or closing statements are allowed. So don't waste your time in preparing yourself for an opening statement or a closing. There's certain questions that they ask, and everybody is asked the same question. Just prepare for yourself for anticipated question. Panel has not seen or reviewed application. This is so important because a lot of people think that, well, I already completed my application. They know I graduated from such and such school. They know my experience, so I don't need to talk about it. If it's for an exam interview, the panel doesn't even have your application. They're not supposed to see your application. They only rate you based on the information you provide. So a lot of us make a mistake and say, oh, I don't need to say that, or they already seen it, or they know I'm graduated from that such a good college, so I'm probably on their higher list. They don't have the application to look at. So all they focus is how you respond to the question. So that's why preparation is so important. And then panel may ask probing or follow-up question. I'm sorry, I went back to. Okay, this is the QIP. So panel has not seen or reviewed your application. Questions are general and not specific to the division or a position. So you don't need to have the duty statement because this is just for the exam, and his exam is based on the scope. We talk about the scope on the exam announcement. That's what you need to focus on. And then panel may not ask probing because they're not supposed to ask you different questions besides the structured questions that they prepared for interview for exam. And it's very formal. Okay, no probing question, no additional questions. But hiring interview questions, there are interviews that are being conducted to hire for a specific position. Candidate may prepare on opening and closing statements. So that's where you need to say why why you think you should be the best candidates for the job, or you are the best candidate for a job, and why at the end, again, kind of reinforce why your qualification makes you the best candidate for the job. So for interview, you need to prepare for that. Panel has seen the review candidate and reviewed candidate's application, so now they have your application. So that makes a difference. And then panel may ask probing and follow-up questions, so you may prepare yourself for all kind of questions based on the duty statement we talked about and the specification that I earlier showed you, because they cannot ask any questions beyond that. Okay? And then panel try to match the best candidate, the best candidates to a specific position. Less formal and it's less structured compared to the interview for exam. A lot of people mix the two, and they not prepare themselves appropriately for one or the other. A structured and unassembled exam used to evaluate applications job. We talk about supplemental applications, that some of the exam these days, or even for position interview, they ask for supplemental application. I helped one of a friend who was trying to submit a supplemental application, and she brought me the ones that she prepared. And then when we compared it to the announcement, she would have completely failed because she did not follow. And she is a very highly educated and highly qualified for the job. But she would have probably just put, their pile would be on a disqualified one, because the exam bulletin, actually for this one was the position statement, said that you must follow the instructions. And it has like 10 questions, and each questions are very specific. We need 4 lines for this. You have to print it in font should be 8, not larger than 8. You should specifically talk about this experience and not, any other experiences. So, very critical that we read the requirement for the job or for the exam. Again, they're designed for candidates to describe in writing their education or experience, and sometimes it's just just narratives. They want narratives of your experience, and the examples of the supplemental apps are either training experience, T&E, which is most of the online exam is your training and education. They don't ask you to solve a math, question, or ask you about your medical, if it's a medical exam, ask you about your specific medical knowledge. They just want you to talk about your training and experience. Okay? And then the E&E are education and experience, training and experience, again, supplemental app. And these are the type of supplemental application used. And then scored application, sometimes they just score your regular application. They don't need supplemental app. You can be evaluated in supplemental app based on your degree, certification, or if you're certified, licenses, completion of the specific academic or training courses. And they specifically ask, if you have this course, make sure you put it and attach your resume or your transcript. Depth of experience. So if they ask the depth of experience in performing a specific task, make sure you put what experience you have plus a highlight of what you did. So if you work on a project that was statewide or national-wide, or if you work in specific organization that the product of what you submitted maybe change a state law, a state regulation, or win a prize, or you got a recognition through your company. Make sure you put that as not only the experience but also the highlight of your experience. And of course the specific knowledge, skills, experience. And the narrative format is, writing, so you have to write it to make sure that they understand the depth of your knowledge. And some of them are point method. So they basically they just ask you to mark certain, bullets, and then based on that they point your supplemental app. Some of the supplemental apps are narrative format, meaning that behavior, consistency method, or grouping method. So they group part of your experience and then score them together, and then another group of experience that is maybe comparable or may not be comparable. So they're grouping method as well, and these are just different methods of supplemental app when you see it on the exam bulletin. Some of them are open-ended and some of them are not. So if they're open-ended, they can ask you for as much as you want to put, but some of them are focused on quality as well as quantity. So you don't want to put pages and pages. If they don't limit you to 2 or 3 pages, you don't want to write pages and pages. You want to focus on the quality and, again, the highlights of your experience. Behavior consistency method is the experience that and significant accomplishment related to the critical duty or work behavior of the classification. So if you have done things that shows a significant accomplishment throughout your job, make sure that you bring them in the behavior consistency method supplemental app. And the scoring criteria, they incorporate the use of rating scales, their benchmark that they put, and the format is the most valid because the benchmark shows if you have done the critical duties or not. These are different kind of methods of pointing your supplemental app. Experience, training, and education requirements are identified by the job analysis. And again, what is job analysis? This is what supervisor and manager use based on the duty statement that we taught. They compile all those duty statements and find out what is the most common denominator of the job, and then based on that they use the question, they develop the question based on those duty statements. So no matter what, you want to know what the duty statement says before you apply for a job. And because they develop that, and they also develop their scoring point based on those duty statements. Okay, that concludes our presentation part. We can open for about 15 minutes for questions, and then after that we have our stations that you can go to the specific fields that you have and ask your specific questions.